Hi, welcome. We'll be taking you to Haifa today. And we definitely, sorry, I have my Facebook on. So we definitely are glad you're here with us. Thank you for joining us all over the world with this exciting tour of Mt Carmel, Bahai, the Druze, people, and so much more. We want to thank our sponsors who have contributed to help us bring this to you today. The Consulate General of Israel to Southeast, Atlanta JCRCA, AJOCC, and the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta. We want to thank our promotional partners, Augusta Jewish Museum, Hillels of Georgia, the Lawfare Project, Club Z, Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation, the MJCCA, AgeWell Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel and Jew Hatred, St. Louis Friends of Israel, the Atlanta Jewish Singles, Helping Our Community, AgeWell Atlanta, B'nai B'rith International, Congregation B'nai Torah, the Weber School, and Hebrew Order of David International with the wonderful Kosher Barbecue Festival. Thank you to our media partners. And thank you to David for joining us in Haifa today on this very rainy day. And just to let everyone know, we bring these tours to you as we have throughout the past year or so, free. If you could find it in your hearts and wallets to make a contribution to the Atlanta Israel Coalition, the money from that goes to help David and get him some tips on the this tour. If you like what you see, please give generously if you can. And here we are with David. David, hi.
Hey, Cheryl, how are you?
Good. How's it in
It's good to
Haifa?
see you again. Well, believe it or not, today is a stormy, rainy day here in Haifa and really all across Israel. In fact, we are experiencing right now one of the wettest months that we've had in the wintertime in quite some time. It's been storming probably for the last 2 weeks with a few days of sunshine here and there. You know, it's one of the great things about Israel is that when you visit in the wintertime, whether it's December, January, February, which are the rainy months here, it only rains 6 months out of the year, you could experience rain one day and the next day it could be 65 degrees. This past Shabbat, I live in Gush Etzion, just a little bit south of Jerusalem. And my wife and I in the afternoon, after we had, all of our guests over for our Shabbat meal for lunch, we decided to sit out on our deck and literally just soak in the sun because it was so beautiful, it was so warm, it was so sunny. And then the next day, here we are in the middle of a major, major storm. So where are we right now? We are in the city of Haifa, but particularly we are in the University of Haifa, which houses the Hecht Museum, which is a beautiful archaeology museum. And this is probably the one stop during our tour here in Haifa that I'll actually be able to be indoors. And the reason why is they extended themselves and have remained open for us in order to have an introduction to Haifa and to Israel here in the museum, because as you are about to see, it is a beautiful, beautiful museum here in the city of Haifa. I do plan on getting out of my vehicle from time to time, rain or shine, in order to show you particular places, but I've incorporated in this tour, as I have in previous tours, for those of you who have been with us on one of our previous 11 tours. Can you believe that, Cheryl? We have done this now. This is the 12th virtual live, I shouldn't say virtual, a live tour here in Israel. And if any of you, and I know we have a lot of viewers tuning in from Canada, as we partnered up recently with the Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation. And so I know we have hundreds of viewers today from Canada. I want to welcome you all to the Atlanta Israel Coalition, here to Israel as well. So maybe some of you haven't seen the previous tours. You guys can check out on YouTube, just type in Atlanta Israel Coalition and you can watch. It won't be live, but it'll be the recording of those previous 11 live tours all around Israel. And it has been amazing. And I just want to thank you, Cheryl. I want to thank Lee and really all the people who volunteer. You guys volunteer. You guys aren't making any money doing this. You do it out of your passion for Israel and for the Jewish people, and to educate people around the world, not just in Atlanta, about the truth of what's happening here in Israel. So I thank you guys so much for your effort and for choosing me to be your guide here in Israel. And I hope now that the borders are open, that we'll still be able to collaborate on many, many, many projects. And I know that in about a month's time, and I hope I'm not, letting everybody know too soon here, but about a month's time, all of you are going to receive an email about an in-person tour. Since the borders are open now, this fall, we plan on doing a mission, a tour to Israel, the Atlanta Israel Coalition and myself, bringing all of you here to the land. So here we are in the museum. They stayed open a little bit late for us, so I just want to jump right into it. And then when we leave and we jump into the car and we're driving around the city of Haifa, I am going to talk a little bit about the demographics in the city and its origins. But I decided to start here in the museum with this really cool looking boat that's behind me over here. This boat, and come a little bit up over here, let the guys see a little bit close to this boat over here. You'll see this wooden boat. It doesn't look that old, and that's because of the millions of dollars that were invested in the preservation of this vessel. This vessel here, this ship here, believe it or not, is 2,400 years old. It comes from the Second Temple period, and it was found just off the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, just a little bit south of Haifa, off of a kibbutz known as Magen Michael, who the founders of that kibbutz were part of the clandestine operation to produce bullets during the War of Independence that was used in order to solidify our homeland here for the Jewish people in our ancestral homeland. But this is a 2,400-year-old boat. And why start here? Well, for those of you who don't know, Haifa is a city located on the shores of the Mediterranean. And it has one of the largest ports in the world, but definitely the largest port here in Israel. And that's because of its deep waters. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. In fact, we're going to see the port itself. But Haifa, throughout the eons of time, from the Chalcolithic period and the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age, and the First Temple period, and the Second Temple period, and all the way through until modern times, was a place that people were able to access the water, fishing communities, ports, import, export, all of that stuff. Why? Because of the water here in Haifa. So just a cool boat that people come from around the world actually see this, especially Christians. And the Atlanta Israel Coalition, we reach out to everybody. So we have Christian viewers with us today, and obviously Jewish viewers, religious, or Orthodox, conservative, Reform, all different walks of life. People who come to see this in order to see what the ships look like during the Second Temple period. And you know what? Recovering the ship was not an easy process, because first of all, archaeology is a difficult science. You've got to be so delicate, but imagine doing it underwater. So these guys are actually archaeologists, but they're also scuba masters to be able to go underneath the water. And here they are recovering part of the ship that you guys see right over here. And just get a little bit of this anchor too. They even found one of the anchors. Just amazing, really just amazing. So come on with me into the museum itself, and we are going to see ruins and artifacts from various points in time throughout the entire history of the land of Israel. And so just making a left over here, we immediately see some coins, and these are different coins from the various empires that ruled over here. I always like to point out the coins that come from the Great Revolt, right? The Masada coin that actually looks just like the shekels, looks just like the currency that we use today. In fact, you can even buy one of these coins and you can have a necklace, and you can actually wear a little bit of history, your history, a coin that might have been used by one of your great grandparents, however many greats ago, here in the land of Israel. But as I was walking around and enjoying all of the archaeology here, I really took notice of the vessels, the cups that you can see over here. And I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna take the camera, and I'm gonna zoom in here. Now, if anybody here has special vessels for washing your hands for bread in your house. Many Jewish homes that celebrate the Shabbat dinner, we have a special cup that we use to wash our hands for doing hamotzi, for breaking bread. And our cups look just like that. And how cool is that to see a cup from literally the Second Temple period that looks exactly like the cups that we're using today. And these particular cups are made out of stone, which is already like expensive because usually it would be made out of pottery. This most likely belonged to a priestly family because stone does not contract spiritual tuma from people. So if I'm spiritually impure and I touch those vessels don't come impure. Whereas if it was made out of pottery, the pottery then would catch, if you'll say, could say, that spiritual impurity, and it would have to be destroyed, and you have to have a new vessel because these cups, these vessels were used to actually purify one's hands before breaking bread. Come over here. We've seen this before in Masada, and you guys need to be able to watch the video from Masada. We saw some of this fresca, some of this paint from 2,000 years ago. This was taken from one of Herod's palaces. Super, super cool. But as we walk around and you get like a more panoramic view of the museum itself, you can see that there are just so many relics from the various wars that were fought here, different cannonballs that were used, different weights. In fact, I'm walking right now through a gate of the city of Yotfat, which was the last city that stood up against the Romans during the Great Revolt 2,000 years ago. It was here that Yosef ben Matisyahu, who was most famously known as Josephus Flavius, the historian who wrote the book, The War of the Jews, which recorded all the battles that were fought against the Romans, the most famous of which was Masada. And of course, we talked extensively about him during that tour. So I'm not going to go into him so much, but these are the stones from the walls of Yotfat. And if you come on over here, you can actually see some of the original arrowheads and the heads of spears that were used, and the stones and slingshots that were used during the battles fighting against the Jews who were trying to retain their freedom and their independence in our own land. But the Romans, we know, were victorious. The temple was destroyed. Masada had fallen. And for 2,000 years, foreign empires controlled the land of Israel until finally we were able to throw off that yoke of foreign rule and regain our independence. Look over here. You can actually see different bits and pieces that were used in the soles of the shoes and the armor of those Roman soldiers. Just to think that these nails and these bits and pieces on the shoes of these Roman soldiers, how many Jews were actually killed by soldiers who were wearing those particular items. Of course, the Romans were very, very famous for their ability to produce glass in mass. And we have some really beautiful, beautiful pieces of glass. Look at this incredible bust of Vespasian. Vespasian was the general of the Roman army here in the land of Israel. And it was him that Yosef ben Matisyahu, Josephus Flavius, will surrender. And when he surrendered to him, he said, when I look at you, I don't see the general of the Roman army. Rather, I see the emperor himself. And it was through that flattery that his life was spared. That's the man right there. That's what he looked like. Come on through here. Again, we're seeing some real amazing artifacts here. Beautiful pieces of pottery, different types of weaponry. Of course, the gorgeous glass. There's even some figurines, some idols that were used not by Jews, but by the Canaanites who were here. We could see the famous bulls that were worshipped by the Canaanites and those that succumbed to idolatry, and the prophet Baal, Eliyahu, and Navi, who we're going to talk about later on during this tour. Because it was here on Mount Carmel, which we're actually standing on right now. This building is on Mount Carmel, which Eliyahu and Navi fought against the prophets of Baal. But here you even have a picture of the city of David, King David, the greatest king of Israel, and his city in Jerusalem, and the artifacts that were discovered around there. And there's a very, very famous pillar and capital that was discovered in the city of David that also helps archaeologists prove that this was the house of David, that this was his palace. And this is this beautiful, beautiful capital we can see here. It's not in the most pristine shape. The ones we found in the city of David were even, you can see the little swirling pattern. This is on the 5 shekel coin. Come with me. Also, that capital, another place we're going to visit. I understand my camera guy's telling me that it's going in and out a little bit. The internet, first of all, during bad weather is never so great here in Israel, but we're also indoors and in the basement of the university right here where this museum is housed. But that capital was discovered, that particular one we saw, that's an original, was discovered in Megiddo, a very, very important archaeological place just outside of Haifa. And we're going to see a video and we're going to visit Megiddo and talk a little bit about it. But that pillar also proves to us the construction that took place in Megiddo during the period of King, not David, but his son, Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, the wisest of all men. So come swing around here. I'm just trying to tie in a couple things we're going to do on this tour with things we can see here. And what you have over here are these boxes. These are all original. This museum, everything in here is original. These are what are known as ossuaries. And during the end of the Second Temple period and during the Talmudic period, this is the way Jews were buried. Okay, how did it work? Well, you ever hear of the story of the rolling stone, right? A lot of Christians who are with us today will know that when Jesus was buried, there was a rolling stone on top of his, or covering his tomb. The reason why is this is the Second Temple period. And in the Second Temple period, bodies were laid to rest inside what's known as coculi, inside these shafts in the bedrock. A rolling stone would cover this area, and it would take 12 months, a year, for the body, the meat, the ligaments, the tendons. I know it's really gross to deteriorate. And after a year, they would roll the stone back. They would take the bones, and they would put the bones in these small boxes known as ossuaries. And the ossuaries, usually in a cave, would be stacked one on top of the other, right? That they would be laid to rest with their forefathers, with their foremothers, the whole family together. And then the descendants could go to those areas, and they could, on the yort site, on the day of their death, or any time, but traditionally on the day of their death, visit the grave, light a yahrzeit candle, and to learn in their merit. And what we're going to do, actually, I want you to come around with me over here, is very soon I'm going to bring you to a place called Beit Shearim. And Beit Shearim is off the beaten path, but it's one of the places that if I get the opportunity to take my guests who come here to Israel with me, if I get to take them there, I always seize the opportunity, because it really is an amazing place to open up the period of the Mishnah, which is the oral Torah, right? The period of the Mishnah. And Beit Shearim is the burial place. It's the burial place. I'm going to go around the other side of you, okay, Phil? Is the burial place of Yehuda HaNasi. And Yehuda HaNasi, a very important Jewish rabbi. You know, if you had the Mount Rushmore of Jewish rabbis, Yehuda HaNasi is on it, because he's going to be the one that codifies, that's going to take the oral tradition that was handed over to Moses at Mount Sinai and during the Exodus, the same time, that sort of opens up all of the important ideas that are found in the Torah. Now, swing around here. I just want to point this out. I just saw this. This here is an altar. It's an incense altar, very similar probably to what you would see at the temple in Jerusalem, right? The 4 horns, everything else, obviously a lot smaller. And that is because before the temple was built, for about 300 years, when Jews lived here in the land of Israel, you could worship and give offerings on an altar that wasn't in Jerusalem. It was only when the temple was built by King Solomon, who we just mentioned before, the son of King David, that our worship of offerings was centralized to Jerusalem. So that might have even been used by Jews over there. But before we exit, I just wanted to show this out because here it is, a beautiful synagogue that's found here in the Galilee. But if you take a nice close look here, what do you guys think you see? Huh? Right? I know you guys are all shocked. That looks like a swastika. And a swastika and this design was actually on the temple itself in Jerusalem and was found on most synagogues during the Second Temple period and the Mishnaic period, because this actually depicts all four corners of the world coming together for a central idea, a central theme, harmony. It's actually a symbol of harmony that was stolen and seized by the Nazis. And now when most people see it, you get that very uneasy feeling, and rightfully so, because we can't help but to think about the Nazis and the Holocaust. So I'm exiting the museum, and we're going into the university sort of grounds. In fact, you can see some people eating over here. There's a food court just around the other side, and that's where we had lunch not so long ago. And here you can see the library for the university down this entire hall. Of course, it's over here on the left-hand side. And it doesn't seem like it's so busy here. And it's not because it's a Sunday, because Sunday is the first day of the week here in Israel. But what we're going to do right now is my camera guy, Phil, and I, we're going to run to our car. We're going to get things ready in the car. And we're going to drive through Haifa. So while we're doing that, I want us to go now. We just saw those ossuaries, and I talked a little bit about Yehuda Nasi, which is the leader during the Talmudic period. Is we're going to watch a quick video that was recorded a little while ago for a television program that I hosted called Land of the Bible. So Lee, if you could go out and cue that video so everybody could see it, and Phil and I are going to head up to the car, and we'll meet you guys over there in about 8 minutes.
A tragic thing happens to the Jewish people in the 2nd century CE. The Romans, who were occupying our land, went so far as to forbid us from studying our ancient texts and from even speaking words of Torah. As a result, common folk like myself became scared to discuss our ancient ways with our children and grandchildren. This is why Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and the other great rabbis of the day convened in cities like Tiberias and Sipori in order to discuss the oral Torah and put it down on that piece of parchment, which would be known as the Mishnah, so that people could learn it on the run. Let's now travel through the Galilee and learn more about the Talmudic era. Beit Shearim has been turned into a national park, and not so much for the incredible ruins that date back to the 1st and 2nd century CE, but due to the fact that they have found elaborate tombs here, graves, sarcophagi that date back to that time period. The people of Beit Shearim dug out these massive caverns into the hillside. Inside, they would bury their dead in sarcophagi. Now, a sarcophagus is like a coffin, but a coffin is buried in the ground, whereas a sarcophagi can either be placed above ground or in a cave, as we see here in Beit Shearim. The dead would literally be placed inside the box. Now, depending on how much money you had, would depend on how elaborate that the stone carvings would be on your sarcophagus. Here we can see that this must have been a very wealthy man. He has a beautiful sarcophagi, but he also has a menorah that was carved out and placed next to the sarcophagus. Let's walk around and see some of the beautiful sarcophagi here in Beit Shearim. Beit Shearim became a very popular place to be buried in after the death of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who I mentioned earlier is accredited with writing the oral Torah down on a piece of parchment, which became known as the Mishnah and the beginning of the Talmudic period. He decided to be buried here even though he died in Sipori, which we'll visit later on. Once he's buried here, Jews from around Israel, as well as in the diaspora outside of Israel, wanted to be buried here in order to take their final rest alongside this important rabbi. Now, these aren't stairs. What I'm standing on right now are actually benches that are located right on top of the grave of the great rabbi. And why? Well, there's an idea in Judaism that on the anniversary of one's death, that a spiritual energy connects the heavens to the earth where the body lies. So in Judaism, we come to the grave, we'll light a candle known as the Yortzeit candle, we'll pray, and we'll learn in the merit of the deceased so that their soul in heaven should have an elevation. It's remarkable to see all of these benches here above the grave of this righteous rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, as people come here to learn and pray and elevate his soul. Let's continue as we learn more about the Talmudic period. We're now at Kfar Kedem, which is a Mishnaic village, to learn more about what the Mishnah actually says.
Wow, David,
Hey, Menachem.
big privilege to see you here.
How are you? Thanks for having us at your Mishnaic village.
Thanks God, yeah.
So tell us, what's behind the vision of opening up this place?
First of all, if you want to hear about the Mishnah village, you need to look like somebody that came through the Mishnah here. It means
Somebody like you.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, I'm all the way here. It's something like 1800 years ago.
Wow.
But first of all, we need to have the outfits.
Okay.
You look one of the Jews here 2,000 years back. And if the Jews had
So what do you
selfie,
think? I look like I'm from 2,000 years ago?
we need to take a selfie like 2,000 years back.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's my 2,000-year-old iPhone. Menachem, now you've got me in this 1,800-year-old Mishnaic garb. Tell us, what was the vision behind building this incredible place?
You know, I ask myself why I'm living here, why people all around the world came and said we want to visit Israel. What's the real connection? And the connection you cannot find in the Bible. Because the Bible says, okay, God promised the Jews the land and this is your land. But how to be a Jew? What's the real connection? What made the campus back to Israel can be like a nation? The only answers you can find, it's only the Mishnah, Bar Mitzvah, you cannot find in the Torah. All those details you can find only in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah shows us the way back to Israel. This is the reason why we are living here. Follow me, and I'm going to show you exactly
All right.
what we are doing.
Fantastic.
Yeah. it's amazing. You think about people, Jews, 3,000 years ago, they need to, for example, to plow their land, their field, and they can do it faster. And something stops them and said, oh, you are not allowed to put two different animals on the same yoke. Why? Because maybe you heard the left shoulder of your poor donkey. It means somebody more than 3,000 years ago thought about the left shoulder of the poor donkey.
Why
Maybe,
the left shoulder?
because if you put the yoke, both, and the ox is power and stronger than the donkey, he's going to hurt his shoulder. It's amazing. You know, it's a lesson of believing Hashem, because who will think about those animals even today? Think about a nation lived here in those hills more than 2,000, 3,000 years ago and thought about how to take care about the animals. For example, you need to eat, but before you eat, you need to give to your animal to eat. It's from the Bible.
Wow.
And yeah, and you stop everything. First of all, give to your animal to eat. And after a while, think about the ox or the donkeys that walking in the threshing floor, and everybody muzzle him, and because you're a Jew and you are, according to Judaism, you are not allowed to muzzle him because maybe you pain him, you give him to suffer. Which part of his body? I didn't understand it. And when you think about this, the only part of his body you can abuse when you muzzle him, that he cannot eat the wheat or the bodies that he is threshing, it's only his mind.
So animal rights basically stems from the Bible.
I think we need to speak about this with a nice herbal teaser.
Sounds great. All right, let's go, Menachem. Menachem, what does the Mishnah say? How we're supposed to treat our fellow man?
It's amazing point, because people today in the modern world speak about animal rights, but they forgot the human rights. And human rights is amazing because now you can be rich, and another 2 days you can be very poor. And the Mishnah take care, explain us what's really the Bible said about, for example, that the corner of the street belong to the poor people, to the widow, to the orphans, to the stranger. And you think about the 6 years. After 6 years, you need to give a rest, to all your field, and strangers can come to your field and take what they want from the trees, from the field, what you get, Who can allow to strangers today to come to his property?
Doesn't seem normal.
And we know that they really behave like this.
What about Shabbat, the Sabbath?
Shabbat, it's amazing idea, because Shabbat, what you're doing, you deal with the most important values idea for you, your kids, your family.
And so all of this love and all of this humanity, animal rights, all this richness, but the framework of the Torah, the depth of it really comes from the Mishnah. And so here at Kfar Kedem, you're trying just to give a small taste of the richness of the Mishnah to people who are coming here who might have very little of it.
Yeah, I know that when people
I'm not sure what happened there. I apologize.
Hey, can you hear me, Cheryl?
I can hear you. I don't know what happened.
No problemo. Listen, it was just about the end of the video anyhow.
Okay.
That particular place that we were just at, which is called Kfar Kedem, that was the owner there, Menachem Goldberg. And that's another place that's very common for me to put onto my itineraries because, like I said, it opens up that Mishnah period and gives us a deep insight into the richness of Judaism. And today animal rights is well, actually has been for a hot topic for a long time. I already remember as a teenager 30 years ago when my mom would be purchasing her makeup oftentimes they would have that sticker, and not tested on animals, right? So
Mhm.
animal rights became a hot topic. And but we can see that animal rights already in Judaism 2,000, 3,000 years ago, that we really had to consider animals and how they're feeling, not just physically, but as Menachem said, also mentally, right? We can't torture them by bringing them in front of a bunch of food, but not allowing them to eat by muzzling them. So here, put it out the front window, filled the camera. You can see it's pretty much stopped raining, which is a miracle in its own right, because it was pouring earlier. But we're driving through the city of Haifa right now. It's 4:30 in the afternoon here in Israel. So it's the beginning of rush hour, and you can see everybody driving, heading back home. And Haifa is the third largest city here in Israel. So I'm sure you guys could probably guess the two largest, right? But you might not know which one is larger than the other. So Jerusalem is the largest city in Israel. Tel Aviv, and when I say the largest, let's just say has the largest population. But Jerusalem is actually the largest land city as well as population. And then Tel Aviv and Haifa. There's just over 1 million residents here in the city of Haifa. And Haifa is really a cool city for many, many, many reasons. And one of those reasons is that it's one of the few cities that is truly, I don't want to use the word integrated, but a real mixed city. And not just mixed, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, religious, not religious. But what I'm really trying to refer to here is that this is a city that is comprised of both Jews as well as Arabs. And there's also another minority, one of the smallest minorities here in Israel that lives just in the outskirts of Haifa, known as the Druze. And we'll talk about the Druze a little bit later. But it's 70%, Haifa is 70% Jewish and 30% Arab. And you could say the same thing pretty much about Jerusalem. Jerusalem is 75% Jewish and 25% Arab. But in Jerusalem, hold on one second, I just got to change lanes and I got to be safe in my driving. I got it. Hold on one second, am I making a deep right? I think so. No, I wasn't. I made a wrong turn. Oh, well. Okay, good. We got to see a little bit of this neighborhood over here. But Haifa, unlike Jerusalem, right, which is a quarter Arab, it's very segregated. Now, granted, we shop at the same supermarkets in Jerusalem, and we go to the same restaurants, and everything here in Israel, we're a free democratic society, and all of our citizens are treated equally. But the neighborhoods themselves are very, very segregated in Jerusalem. And here it's very mixed. Now, granted, you have neighborhoods that are a little bit more Arab or a little bit more Jewish, but it's a very, very mixed city here in Haifa. Also, 25% of the Jewish population comes from the former Soviet Union, right? In 1990, when the Iron Curtain came down and the Jews of the former Soviet Union were finally free to leave, many of them went to America, many of them went, believe it or not, to Germany. Germany was one of the few European countries that allowed the Russian Jewish population to come to Germany. And I suppose part of that is part of the reparations, obviously, of the Holocaust. And they wanted to bring back a Jewish community to Germany. But 1 million Jews from the former Soviet Union came to Israel. 1 million people, at that time, it was 20% of our population, a 20% increase. To put that in American terms, right? America is roughly about 400 million. That would be like welcoming 85 million new immigrants to America. Right? Where are you going to house them? Where are you going to, where are you going to build the buildings? Where are the jobs going to come from? The new institutions, how are you going to integrate them? How are you going to teach them the language and the culture? So Haifa was one of the cities where a lot of building took place in order to house these Jews that were coming from the former Soviet Union. So as you look outside, you can see some of the building here in Haifa, and some of it, the architecture doesn't really look so appealing. It doesn't look so beautiful. Here's a new building you can kind of see right here over to your left-hand side. But if you go out to your right-hand side, go on to the right there, Phil, you can see some of this architecture over here. And it's literally just cinder blocks, concrete block buildings with stucco on it. And this is because we could put up those buildings really, really, really quickly and make as much housing as possible for all of the Jews that, thank God, were able to and wanted to return home and decided to come here to Israel rather than another country somewhere else in the world like America. And the Russians brought a lot of culture with them. When I say the Russians, the Jews that were living in Russia, when they came in, they brought a lot of culture. Our symphony took off, and the Philharmonic, and a lot of the scientists and the doctors. The Jews of the former Soviet Union were, some of the most highly educated in Russia at that time. And they brought a wealth of knowledge with them here to Israel. And many of them actually attended one of the universities here in Haifa. We have two major universities at Haifa. We were just at the University of Haifa, wonderful school. Again, Jews and Arabs, Jews, Christians, Muslims, Druze, everybody attends. All citizens come here to the University of Haifa. But you also have the Technion. And the Technion here in Haifa is like the Israeli version of MIT, right? The Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And a lot of who'll become our astronauts and those in aeronautics and different areas of mechanical engineering and scientists study at the Technion University, which is located here in Haifa. Now, what we're doing right now is we're driving through, and thank God that turn that I took the wrong turn wasn't such a bad thing. It only took us like a minute to do a U-turn. I don't know if anybody could really follow what was going on the video. But here in Haifa, as you can see, we're now going down a street with a double white line. And this street is just going to wind, I don't know how far down the mountain, right? Haifa is built on a mountain, on the Carmel mountain. But if you make a wrong turn here in Haifa, you can find yourself on a 20-minute detour because these streets are long and windy and offer very, very few opportunities to do a U-turn. Here you can see the buildings on the side of the mountain over here and how it was constructed. Just imagine, this is the side of a mountain here, Mount Carmel. When we get to the Baha'i Gardens, we will be able to, hold on one second. Is this it? No, this isn't it. When we get to the Baha'i Gardens, I'm hoping that we're going to get a great view of the Mediterranean Sea. But all of the homes here on this mountain all have great, great views of the shore and of the Mediterranean, of the sea. They all get fantastic sunsets. Even these buildings over here to your right-hand side, which just looking at the construction, this is probably a lower income area here in Haifa. And but they all got great views of the sea as well, because it's built on such a steep slope that it would be very, very hard to really obstruct one's view of the West, which is where the Mediterranean is located. And where we're headed to right now are the Baha'i Gardens. Okay, we just came to a red light over here. The Baha'i Gardens, actually, when I bring people to Haifa, we do not spend a lot of time here in the city. Usually the one stop that I go to are the gardens in which we were about to explore. And the reason why, the primary reason, I have to admit, the primary reason is because of the beautiful epic views of the entire Haifa Bay and the port, which I mentioned at the very beginning of this tour, which is one of the largest in the world and the largest here in Haifa. Over 51% of all of the import and export that takes place here in Israel takes place at the Haifa port. Now, much of the goods that arrive at the port don't actually stay here in Israel. It's actually a place that a lot of ships come to and they change their cargo. I'm not too sure what you would call that, an interchange, right? A place where they're going to come and some of the cargo is going to be unloaded, put on a different ship, from this ship to the other ship, and those ships are going to go to their final destination. We'll talk a little bit more of the port when we head down there. But from the Baha'i Gardens, you really get this unbelievable, beautiful view of the entire area. And that's where we're headed. And the Bahai are the newest, probably the newest religion out there, definitely the newest monotheistic religion in the world. It was really only formed, developed, developed about 150 years ago in the middle of the 19th century in Persia, in what is today Iran. And it's an offshoot of Islam. And because it's an offshoot of Islam, they are heavily persecuted, even more than the Jewish community in Iran today. They are heavily persecuted because they believe in another prophet after Muhammad. And in Islam, it says there shall be no prophet after Muhammad. So here in Iran, in a very Islamic place, you have an offshoot of Islam that will become known as the Baha'i faith, which yes is monotheistic, and yes also reveres, right? It also reveres Muhammad as a prophet. And they also revere Moses, right, as a prophet. They also revere Buddha, Hare Krishna as prophets, and also Jesus as a prophet. So they incorporate all of these different religions into one. But I would say the heaviest influence on the Baha'i faith is Islam. Most of their tenets come from Islam, but not exclusively. Here you can see a little bit of the Mediterranean. We're just going under, oops, little bump here, Phil. We're going underneath this little bridge. In just a few moments, I'm gonna park the car. Here, take a look at this cool little building right here. You get that? That is part of the Dan Haifa Hotel, and that's a little restaurant that overlooks this entire area. And I'll tell you what, this rain may have been a blessing. Everything's a blessing, right? Everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it may have been a blessing because it looks like, because of it, the sky is very, very, very clear right now. And we might get a fantastic view all the way to the north. And I'm hoping that we might be able to see even the border of Lebanon. And maybe we'll see a little bit of Akko. Maybe we'll see a little bit of, we might see a little bit of Akko and Rosh Hanikra. Oh, wow. My friends, we truly have gotten very, very lucky here. I'm going to cross the road. And I'm going to take you on a nice little lift up here. Beautiful flowers. And oh my gosh, look how gorgeous that is. The city of Haifa. And believe it or not, this little walkway that you can see just right here, this is part of the Baha'i Gardens. And we just have to walk just a little bit. I'm hoping that this rain did not close it down because I'm not seeing a guard out there. They may have closed the entranceway, but it's okay. We could still see a lot of it from up here. But one of the hopes I had was that when we enter the garden, that we would be able to meet one of the Baha'i faithful. I wish you could zoom on Zoom, but you can't. But right here, those structures you can see in the water, so that is part of the port of Haifa. In fact, that's the newest part of the port. Just down below here is the older section. That is the newer section that just recently opened up. And this is like the commercial district. right there. And those mountains that you can see in the horizon right over there. So those are the mountains of the Upper Galilee. And we're following the coast. We're following the coast. We're following my finger. And right there, you can see a little bit of white. So that little bit of white over there is a place called Rosh Hanikra. We're going to watch a little video on that. It's not so far away. And that is the border of Lebanon, just right over there. And the lights you can see, I don't know if you can really make it out, just over there is the ancient city of Akko. And we're going to see a little bit of the ancient city of Akko in that video. And I don't know if you can make out all of the ships. Can you guys see all those little spots right there? Those aren't spots in the water. Those are all huge cargo ships that are coming in and out of the Haifa Bay. And you can see a large, ugly building just right down there. That is the commodities market. The train from the south comes in here. A lot of stuff's unloaded here, weighed, whatever it's done, marked, stamped. And then from there, it can be put onto the ships and all of the goods that we produce exported towards the west. If you guys were with us 2 weeks ago when we visited the most southern city, oh, I think I see a guard. I think it's open. Well, we went to go visit the southern city of Eilat. That was our port to the east and to Asia. And so this is our port here. One of them. We also have the port in Ashdod, but this is the port of going west and going to the rest of the world. So it is open over here. The guard is just on the inside, usually on the outside. And I actually see some tourists here. It's pretty cool. And I actually see that they're with a tour guide, which is even more amazing. The borders here are open. So it's really great to see tourists here and tour guides working. Shalom aleichem, aleichem shalom. You can see there's just a little security. They're going to want us down, like most places here in Israel. And you're closing in 5 minutes. That's great. All right. Shalom aleichem. Shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. And so we have 5 minutes just right here. But I do actually have a video of the Baha'i Gardens. Look how gorgeous that is, my friends. I do have a video of the Baha'i Gardens. We're going to interview one of the members here. And you can see a mausoleum down below. You can see the golden dome over there. That looks a little bit like the golden dome maybe in Jerusalem. And that is a mausoleum to what the Bahai here referred to as the Bab. And he was the predecessor of the main prophet of the Baha'i faith, okay? Now, even if we're Jewish, I'm sure many of us know a little bit about Christianity. And you know, in Christianity, there was a guy by the name of John the Baptist. And John the Baptist said, you know, there's a prophet that's going to be coming and listen up. And who was that? That was going to be Jesus. So too, the Bab said there's going to be a new dawn, a new era, a new beginning of humanity and oneness of everybody. And wait for his arrival. And he's going to give a new testimony that's going to come from God himself. And so he's the predecessor, the Bab. He's buried hid. The prophet who he was referring to, believe it or not, is actually buried in Akko, just a little bit to the north. And that's because of that persecution that I was talking about in Persia, that they had fled. This was part of the Ottoman Empire, and they were actually placed in jail over here. Now, underneath here, shalom. Can I ask you a couple questions for some of our viewers? Just for 1 minute? They would love just to know who you are and where you come from and a little bit about, no? Okay, fine. There is somebody here. I was going to ask them to see if they would do a little interview and just say something, but you know, many of the Baha'i faithful, is about 15 million in the world, donate about 10% of their earnings, very similar to Judaism as well. We give 10% of Meiser to their church, to their temple. A lot of it is used to upkeep the gardens over here. But if they're lucky enough and they get to volunteer, you know, I guess you'd kind of say like the Mormons who go on a 2-year missionary period. They don't missionize the Baha'i, but they come and they volunteer in different areas, and some of them get to come right here to Haifa. Now, just enjoy some of these gorgeous, gorgeous views. I'm gonna give you guys a nice pan out. This is beautiful. This is, you know, guys, there's a Q&A button. somewhere on your screen. If you guys have any questions, you guys are welcome to go ahead and ask that in the Q&A. And if we get an opportunity either before or after, we'll go ahead and take some of those questions. Now, just down below, wish I could telephoto in, these ships that you see right here, these are actually military Navy ships. And the last time I was here in Haifa, not so long ago, I actually was able to see, and oftentimes you can see submarines going in and out here. So this is the base for a lot of the submarines here in Israel, but a lot of our fleet, when they're in base, are here, but also a lot of our newer ships in the Navy, which are protecting the natural gas fields that we have in the Haifa Bay. So they'll be in base here, and then when they need to do their missions, they'll go out and they'll protect our maritime border with Lebanon to the north, and very importantly also to protect our natural gas fields, which is very, very important. So I'm just going to give you guys a nice little shot coming from down and just slowly moving up. You can just see how gorgeous that is. Absolutely stunning. Let's try and see if we can get a little bit closer to the port. And we'll see how close we get. Now, if you guys remember from the Eilat tour, we almost got arrested when we were at the port. So we'll see what happens down here. Maybe we won't get out of the car. But if we don't rather, it's okay, because I do have a great video. I was actually able to go up to the top of one of those big towers over there, the cranes. And believe it or not, this is a 100% green port. What do I mean? All the energy, it's all electric. There's no burning of fossil fuels, gas. It's very quiet. The engines are all very quiet. It's like a Tesla. When you see a Tesla going down the road, you don't hear its muffler and its engine. It's very quiet. The same thing here. It's very, very quiet. A totally green port, and one of the largest ports really also in the world. So I'm gonna head on out here. And you know what, Cheryl? Lee, can you go ahead? Hopefully we were able to fix that problem. I have a great interview that I did with one of the heads of their community here in Haifa. And let's learn a little bit more about the Baha'i people and by watching that video. So Lee, can you go ahead and roll that clip?
Yes, that's the third video, the Baha'i.
The one that says Bahai, that's right.
Okay.
Joined by Leva Irandus, who is a believer in the Baha'i faith, who's going to talk a little bit about the tenets of their belief, as well as why the Baha'i Gardens are considered holy to them. Leva, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for being here.
So tell us a bit about a few of the principles of your faith.
Yes. So the Baha'i believes that God is one, and that he has sent throughout history divine teacher to educate mankind, and that humanity is one. The Baha'i believes in all these divine teachers. Who are there? Amongst them we have Krishna, Buddha, Moses, Jesus Christ, and Muhammad. The Baha'i believes that God has sent 2 additional prophets, who are the Bab, the forerunner of the Baha'i religion, and Baha'u'llah, the founder of Baha'i religion.
The gardens here are beautiful, but I also see several monumental buildings. Can you tell us a little bit about the structures?
Of course. So mainly here you have the Shrine of the Bab, which is one of the holiest spots on earth for Baha'i, where all our hearts turn to. So it's a spiritual center. But Haifa is also an administrative center of the Baha'i religion, where you have the main administrative buildings, including one of them, the main, which is the international governance body of the Baha'i religion, called the Universal House of Justice, but you have as well the International Library, where you have the Holy Scriptures and people are studying the holy writings, but also the International Archives, where you have artifacts from the founder and the co-founder of the Baha'i religion.
Amazing. And beyond being a pilgrimage site for believers of the Baha'i faith, you also open the gardens to whomever wants to visit, and you have millions of visitors every year. What do you want a visitor to feel when they leave the gardens?
So the gardens were created to have a fitting approach to the resting place of the Bab. But also the main principle, as we said, is the ultimate understanding of the oneness of God, the oneness of humanity. So by visiting this garden, we want people to meditate on these spiritual principles and have this soothing spiritual feeling of oneness of humanity.
You know, you mentioned the Bab quite often. Can you tell us a little bit about who the man was?
Yes, of course, it will be a pleasure, but maybe it will be more interesting to tell the story closer to the shrine.
Wonderful. Shall we walk down?
Yes.
Leva, the mausoleum here to the Bab, it's absolutely stunning. Tell us a little bit about the structure, but more importantly about who this man was.
This man was named Mirza Muhammad Ali, and he named himself the Bab, which means the gate. He announced himself as a divine messenger that was preparing the venue for something that was greater than him, a divine teacher whose name was Baha'u'llah, which means the glory of God.
I see. So he was the Bab, the gate to the glory of God.
Exactly. That's what it was.
And so he was executed by the Persian authorities in Iran.
Exactly.
So why is he buried here in Haifa in the middle of Israel?
Yes, so basically the Bab was executed over there, but Baha'u'llah himself was exiled in the whole Ottoman Empire, and he ended up here in Akko, where one time he went in Haifa. He pointed out this location to be the resting place of the Bab.
And here you have the Bab is buried in Haifa, Baha'u'llah in Akko, and the gardens here for pilgrims of the Baha'i faith to visit.
Exactly. 5 million Baha'i over the world who are visiting this place, which is the holiest spot on earth for Baha'i.
Thank you so much for opening up the gardens and sharing a little bit about your faith with all of us here. Let's continue as we explore more of the city of Haifa.
Okay, we're back. Great. David.
Carol, thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed that, learned a little bit about the Baha'i people. You know, earlier when I mentioned the Druze.
David, we can't see you.
Oh, you can't see me? Okay,
there you
hold
are.
on 1 second. All right,
okay.
Fantastic. So anyways, I'm not so important. It's really the view here and seeing a little bit of Haifa before it gets too dark as we drive through the streets over here. But as I was mentioning, when I talked briefly about the Druze, who I'm going to talk a little bit more extensively right now, as being, you know, one of the smaller minorities here in Israel. There's about 120,000 Druze that live here in Israel. I didn't mention the Baha'i as being a minority here because there really aren't many Israelis who have become part of the Baha'i faith, or many people of the Baha'i faith who became a citizen of Israel. But you do have Baha'i people, as the woman who we interviewed mentioned, that come here as tourists, just like Christian pilgrims that come to the holiest place for them. Who would have imagined that, you know, we are one of the holiest places. The holiest places in Judaism, and the holiest place in Christianity, and considered a very holy place in Islam as well. But it's also the holiest place for these people called the Baha'i. But they're not really one of the minorities here because they just come here, they visit. There's an election. They have an election for their Supreme Council, who is housed here in Haifa, in one of those administrative buildings that we got to see in the video a little bit. But they are not citizens and they do not live here. The Druze, however, do, and the Druze have been here for, well, since pre-state, since before the state of Israel. In fact, they've been living here in the land of Israel probably for close to 1,000 years, really since the dawn of the around the 12th century CE, when this entire area of the Middle East was governed and ruled by a dynasty known as the Fatimids. And the Fatimids ruled from Cairo. And there was a leader within the Fatimids called Al-Hakim. And Al-Hakim came here to the Holy Land, and he destroyed not the synagogues, my friends, he destroyed all of the churches. Because in fundamental Islam, Christianity is looked at as a pagan religion. They say anytime that you have God who has some type of relation or plants his seed in a mortal woman, and out comes his son of God, a child of God, they say this is just like what we've seen in Greek mythology or Roman mythology, and we don't want to have anything to do with this. And they destroyed the churches. And because he did that, he was seen by many of his followers to be the fulfillment of the Islamic version of the Messiah. Just like we have a Messiah in Judaism, just like Christians believe the Messiah was Jesus, so too the Druze believe that this Al-Hakim was the Messiah. Except a lot of people did not approve or agree that he was the Messiah. So his followers turned him into, instead of the Messiah, turned him into a prophet. But just like the Bahai, who were an offshoot of Islam, this offshoot of Islam, just 1,000 or 850 years earlier, now known as the Druze people. And just like the Bahai, they were persecuted and they fled Egypt and they settled here in the land of Israel and what will become Lebanon and what will become Syria and what will become Jordan. And there are about 1 million Druze people around the Middle East, and they've gone all around the world now, but primarily in those 4 countries, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, about 1 million of them. And they've never had any independence of their own. They've never had their own land. And so one of their tenets, one of their understandings is that they will give absolute devotion to whatever country they're living in. So they will defend the land in which they're living in. And this is how they gained acceptance from those that were ruling those lands. Which means in the first Lebanon War, also the second Lebanon War, but even more so the first Lebanon War in 1982, you had Druze people who were living here in Israel and Druze people who were living in Lebanon, who were first cousins, and they would fight to the death for the land, for the country that they were living in. Now we're going to war with Lebanon. There's Druze people in the Lebanese army, and there are Druze people in the Israeli army. Hold on one second. Whoa. Okay, here we go. Ambulance, little roads. We're gonna get some of this road shot here. So people would see what we're driving through here. It's a little what we call here in Hebrew, Meshugana. It's a little crazy over here. And so the Druze people pledge allegiance, which also means in 1967, when we were fighting against Syria in the 6-Day War, you also had a little bit of the same there as well. Today, the Golan Heights has a lot of Druze people living there, and you have a lot of Druze people, first cousins, that are living on the Syrian side. However, many of the Druze people who live in the Golan Heights have not accepted Israeli citizenship, although they're very happy to be living here. And that's because they're afraid that if the Golan Heights was ever conquered by the Syrians, and they heard that these Druze people, pledged allegiance to Israel. Here, take a look at this little old church over here. You can see that they would slaughter them, which of course they most likely would. I'm just showing you this little church right here. You can just see what a diverse community we have here in Haifa. Muslims, Christians, Jews, religious, not so religious. So you'll see churches and mosques and synagogues. And again, very, very much, everybody integrated with one another. This is the older sort of area here in Haifa. You can see some of the Arabic architecture here to the right-hand side. Get these arches, Phil, out your window. You got it in the picture, okay. Here's another church over here to the right-hand side. We can see this is a Catholic church. You can see the yellow flag up on top. That is a flag of the Vatican. So really, really interesting stuff here. I actually have had tourists who wanted to spend a couple of nights here in Haifa and just really spend some time here. There's a really wonderful underground. Oh, I can't make a right-hand turn here. No, it's the next one. A really beautiful, wonderful underground art, like theater here in Haifa. So a lot of people come here. A lot of small theaters, a lot of little plays over here. It's got a nice little vibrant, what in America we would call the hipster community, right? You have a nice little hipster community here in Haifa as well. So I am just trying to go down this busy street, which we're actually going to return to the street because this is actually a very famous street. But while we're driving down here, hold on one second, I'm just paying attention a little bit to the traffic over here. Here, you know what? Shoot up to the front, Phil. You can see there's a ship, which means the port is just a little bit in front of us. Hold on one second, I'm coming out here, I'm zooming out. Looks like I can go around a little bit, maybe get a little bit closer. Believe it or not, the Druze people per capita, right? The Druze, again, like I said, is about 120,000 of them living here in Israel, but per capita, for their population, they have a higher percentage of their males, the men within their community, that serve in the Israeli army. And I served in the Israeli army. And in fact, hopefully at the end of this tour, we're going to have a little bit of time. I really want to give over a little bit of how I came to become a guide here in Israel and just share, I don't know if you guys realize this might be one of our last live virtual tours. The borders are open. We want to do a live mission here to Israel, do an Atlanta Israel Coalition. All of you that have been joining us over the last year and a half, that you're able to come with your loved ones and visit Israel with us and to travel through here all together. But I served in the army here, and we had a lot of Druze people in my unit. I was in an artillery unit, and I actually fought during the Second Lebanon War, which I do plan on telling you guys a little bit about towards the end of this tour. Let me see here. What time is it actually? It's already 5:10. My gosh. You know what, Lee? Let's go ahead and roll the video on the Haifa port, which is right here to our right-hand side, okay, the Haifa port video. And it's not just about the Haifa port, it's also going to be a little bit about Akko and Rosh Hanikra, which is a little bit north of Haifa. And I'm actually going to drive to our next location while you guys are watching that video. So go ahead, Lee, if you could roll.
The city of Haifa boasts the largest port in all of Israel and one of the largest in the entire world. Over half of our import and export passes through the port here in Haifa. Over 25 million tons of cargo and all sorts of cargo, wet cargo, dry cargo, food for human consumption, fertilizers, chemicals, you name it, it passes through these docks right here in Haifa. In fact, it has one of the leading information technology systems, which allows it to handle the largest ships in the world, some of them containing over 14,000 containers, like the one you see behind me. It's also a green port. All of the energy here is from green sources. In addition to that, it's also paperless. If that's not enough, it also boasts one of Israel's Navy shipyards. And earlier today, I saw a submarine leaving its base and heading out to sea. There are also docks here to accommodate the international cruise lines that makes Israel one of its destinations. There's also a ferry to and from the ancient city of Akko, offering magnificent views from the sea to the city of Haifa, the Baha'i Gardens, the mountains that surround this area, and of course, the ancient port in Akko. From any hilltop here in Haifa, you can see the magnificent harbor and the port here in Haifa. Akko is an ancient city with ruins dating back to the Bronze Age. It had settlement here through the First and Second Temples, as well as the Greek and Roman Empire. However, it will be most well known for the ruins dating back to the Crusader period, when the city was built to be the greatest port in the Eastern Empire. However, the city was destroyed by the Sultan Baybars and the Mamluks. It was only rebuilt to prominence in 1750 during the Turkish Empire. Join me as we explore the city of Akko. The city of Akko is a UNESCO heritage site due to the fact that there's so many Crusader ruins here. The reason why is that the Mamluks, who destroyed the Crusader city in the year 1291, destroyed it into the first story. Then, over the course of time, it was all covered with sand until it was rediscovered in the late 20th century. Today, it's been opened up as a multimedia archaeological museum that visitors can come and explore on their own. Let's go inside and check it out. Once inside, you'll notice the incredible preservation of the ancient architecture, which is in of itself pretty amazing. In addition to the audio guide that they provide, there's plenty of signage and movies which further describe what was discovered here and what life was like during the Crusader period. Let's now stroll through the ruins and discover for ourselves what's here. The largest hall in the Crusader ruins is the Knights Hall. It's also the most interactive and a lot of fun for kids. There are several ancient games that visitors can play, as well as shops that are run by people in costume reenacting how goods were made 1,000 years ago during those Crusader times. And the best part about it is you can buy a memento here to take home with you. There's a new exhibit here in the Knights Hall that has modern technology meeting ancient times. It's an Israeli startup called AIC Tours, which uses a pair of virtual reality goggles and a headset and allows the visitor to step back in time and experience history as if they were right there. This is a 7-minute virtual reality tour of ancient Akko you won't want to miss out on. The refectory, the dining room for the knights, was also used to feed the poor. Once the poor were fed, the knights themselves would eat their meals. Meals were always eaten in silence and was served with wine. And from here, they would march in unison to the church for their daily prayers. Let's head to the chapel now. The church was the focus point for all the different communities here in Akko, and it was no different for the Knights Hospitallers of St. John, whose church was located here. However, the church was above ground, and that was destroyed by the Mamluks. And so where we are right now is the crypt below the church. And as you can see here on either side of me, we have 2 tombstones, one for the head of the order and another one over here that belonged to the Bishop of Nazareth towards the end of the 13th century. And you better believe it, here there are many tales from the crypt. Let's head out of the Crusader halls to a newly discovered secret tunnel. Even though the city of Akko during the Crusader period was once the nicest city in all of Israel, the Crusaders themselves, the different factions that made them up, fought violently with one another. At one point, there was literally a civil war on the streets of Akko. One of the more famous Crusaders were the Knights Templars, and they were nervous that their palace, their fortress, which was located on the northwestern side of the city, would be cut off from the all-important ports. So they constructed the tunnel that I'm standing in now, which cut across the city underground 350 meters. And this allowed them to bring their goods both import and exports, across the city from their fortress to the port. This tunnel was unknown until 1994, when literally the road above me collapsed into the tunnel and archaeologists discovered it. Today, it's open for tourists who want to cut through the city using the ancient Knights Templar tunnel. One of the most popular attractions to do in and around Akko is located just slightly to the north of the city along the coastline in the country's largest sea reserve. It's called Trek Yam, and they offer a wide selection of exciting things to do. But their most popular activity is the tornado boat, which brings you out into the sea traveling at incredibly high speeds, bouncing along the waves and getting totally wet. They go up north towards Rosh Hanikra, as well as having special permits to enter a closed military zone that goes along the border of Lebanon. Or if you'd like, you could travel south to the city of Akko and get incredible views of the old city walls from the sea. They also offer snorkeling on 5 protected islands that humans aren't allowed to enter. And as a result, many wild animals have begun to call it their home. And on any given day, you'll be able to see sea turtles swimming around there, wild birds, and on a lucky day, you'll even see sea lions. All in all, Trek Yam is a fantastic attraction. In fact, you could easily spend the entire afternoon here. If you get hungry, they can provide lunch or dinner right here on the beach. Let's now cruise up north and visit Rosh Hanikra. A 14-mile drive north of the city of Akko along the coast of the Mediterranean brings us to the most northwestern point in the state of Israel along the border of Lebanon. It's also the site of one of the most beautiful places in all of Israel called Rosh Hanikra. You can access this nature reserve using the world's steepest cable car from the parking lot above to the grottos below. The grottos here were formed over the course of millions of years, beginning with tectonic movements that formed the latter ridge anticline. At the same time, cracks were created in the rock, which were eroded by rain. And then the lapping of the sea against its soft chalk face eroded them even further, forming some of the most spectacular grottos in the entire world. They are continuously eroding, roughly about a meter every 1,000 years. Let's now go explore these beautiful grottos. In addition to the incredible beauty here, there's also a rich amount of history, dating all the way back to the period of Alexander the Great, when he laid his eyes on the land of Israel. However, when he approached from the north and he faced the latter ridge, he commanded his men to chisel steps so that the equipment could be brought over this high mountain. That's where the name Rosh Hanikra comes from. In Hebrew, it means the top of the chiseled stone. The British faced the same difficulty during World War I when they tried to bring equipment from the north as far south as Egypt. When they faced the latter ridge, instead of climbing over it, they dug out the tunnel that you can see behind me. They then built a railroad track so that they could easily bring their equipment here to Israel as well as to Egypt. Then in 1944, a group of roughly 300 Holocaust survivors who were exchanged for German prisoners of war made their way into Israel using this railway. Finally, in 1947, in an operation known as the Night of the Bridges, the Palmach, one of the paramilitary organizations fighting for the independence of Israel, blew up the railroad tracks, preventing the British from bringing that military equipment into the land of Israel, which was hindering our efforts for independence. Let's now check out some of the other activities here in Rosh Hanikra. A great activity to do here in Rosh Hanikra is to rent bicycles at the end of that British tunnel. The bike path runs through a nature reserve with lots of inlets and wild animals.
All right, folks, listen, I cannot believe the time already. You guys are all amazing. I can't thank you enough for joining again and spending this time. I hope you could spend a little bit more time with us. The time has just flown by. And I just want you to know, I thought it was important to bring you guys up a little bit north to Akko, to Rosh Hanikra. And I really had even more videos lined up to show you. And I'm going to tell Cheryl and Lee over at the Atlanta Israel Coalition to go ahead and share the links, because they're private videos, to share the links to those videos with all of you so you can see some of the other sites that are really in and around Haifa. When you come to visit Haifa, sure, it's a beautiful city. We hadn't even explored the shores, right? It was too rainy, but some of the most pristine, beautiful beaches here in Israel, right here in Haifa. And you have the Maritime Museum to my left, and behind me, you can see a little bit of the submarine over here. You have the Stella Maris, a cave, which many people believe is the cave that Eliyahu Navi, the prophet Elijah, hid out in. The battles between the prophets of Baal, the false god, and the one true God that took place on Mt Carmel, which is right here in Haifa. So there really is still so much to see, so much to explore here. And all the videos you saw, whether it was Kfar Kedem, whether it was Beit Shearim, Akko, Rosh Hanikra, Trek Yam, and those crazy speedboats zipping around, you know, military naval vessels, it's all within like a half hour of this great city. So it's true. Most people don't spend a night on their trip to Israel here in Haifa. But if you did, there is plenty to do. Now, I told you in the beginning, I want to share just a little bit story of myself and how I got here and how appreciative I am of Cheryl and Lee and everybody in the Atlantic Israel Coalition. And of course, all of you who have supported the efforts that they have put in. They volunteer. I wish I could say I do the same, but tourism in the last 2 years has been at a complete standstill. And some of the only work that I've had is with the Atlanta Israel Coalition. And the only way they can hire me to do what I hope is good work, and I hope you guys are appreciating it, is through your generous support. So we know you have it in your heart, and if you have it in your wallet as well, please give generously. There's a button on their Facebook page to donate. You'll get an email. There's plenty of ways to give, whether or not you want to put for David Sussman and his tours, or just the Atlanta Israel Coalition. All of the content that they produce and everything they do is for the land of Israel, and we all benefit from it, whether it goes directly to me or to another cause here in Israel. I stand by them 100%. So how did I get here? How did I end up being a tour guide for the Anti-Israel Coalition. It really begins a long time ago, but I'll start in 2006 when Hezbollah, that terrorist organization in Lebanon, crossed over our sovereign borders and ambushed one of our units. Well, they killed a number of our soldiers, but they kidnapped 3 more. And this was the onset of the Second Lebanon War. My unit served there for 28 days. The war was 34 days. We were there longer than most units. And just to give you an idea of what it's like, it might have been a short period of time, especially I know if we have, some veterans of some other wars that America has been involved in. I have a grandfather that was in World War I, 2 uncles in World War II. My first cousin was in Vietnam. My brother was in the Gulf War, serving in the Navy for America. And I know those were long battles and long wars, and people did tours for months, if not years. So 28 days might not seem like a long time. There's no showers, there's no bathrooms. It's really, really hot, and it's nonstop. And during that fighting that took place there, I experienced 3 near-death experiences. But one of them changed my life, and I had what people would say, my life flashed before my eyes, and I could reflect on all the decisions I've ever made. And I came to that conclusion that our decisions that we make are really what define us. After we're long and gone, it's not going to make a difference how much we have in our bank accounts. It's not going to make a difference all the physical wealth that we've been able to attain. And please God, we should all attain all the riches we could possibly desire. There's nothing wrong with it. But the decisions we make, and what we decide to do with that wealth, and what we decide to do with our life, that truly is our legacy. And when I came to that realization, at the time I was actually managing a nightclub in Tel Aviv, I decided I wanted to do something, not to say that that isn't worthwhile, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, something that will hopefully inspire the lives of many. And when I saw the opportunity to become a tour guide, I seized it. And for almost 15 years now, that's what I've been doing. And I hope, please God, that in the near future, this fall, that all of you will join Atlanta Israel Coalition, David Sussman Israel Tours on a magnificent 10-day trip here to the land of Israel. And if it's not on the mission that we're going to put together, the Atlanta Israel Coalition, then please reach out to me. I say it every week. I'm not getting that many messages from you all. So go ahead, like me on Facebook, David Sussman Israel Tours. Message me, say hello. I promise, I'll respond. Look me up online, David Sussman and Israel. My website will pop up. Contact me. If you like the videos you've seen, I got dozens of hours, if not hundreds of hours of content already uploaded on my website. Lots of stuff for you to watch, to learn, to grow. And of course, let me be the source here in Israel for all of your questions. I'd really be happy to answer them. So a big heartfelt thank you to all of you, to all of our Canadian friends who joined us, all of our friends around the world, and of course, all of you in Atlanta, the Atlanta Israel Coalition, Lee and Cheryl. I can't thank you enough. You guys have been a godsend to me and to my cameraman, Phil, for giving this opportunity to do what we love, to share the land of Israel, and to bring a little bit of joy, hopefully, into your homes on these wonderful Sunday mornings. And I'm so sorry if any of you all are from Kansas City, but it is Sunday, and it is playoff football, and the Buffalo Bills are going to be hosting the AFC Championship game next Sunday. So thank you again, and I know we got some questions. I'm here all night. Yalla. Cheryl, let me hear the questions as we walk down towards this submarine.
Okay, here we go. Somebody has asked, old generation of Druze in the Golan Heights, I assume, were citizens of Syria. But if the young are not accepting Israeli citizens, what passports do they travel on?
That's a great question. Oops, your camera can't be so good there, Phil. You're backwards, your camera. Hold on one second, guys. We just have a little bit of an error here with the camera.
That's the beauty of a live tour.
There we go. Okay, fantastic. That's a great question. It's a question that actually hasn't been posed to me before, but I would assume that it's something similar to the Arabs that are living in the within the control of the Palestinian Authority, that they have some type of travel document that's issued through them and accepted by Israel, and they travel out through Ben Gurion Airport. So those Druze that want to travel have some type of travel permit that is issued by Israel, but many of them, like I said before, haven't accepted Israeli citizenship. But I will tell you that they are patriotic and grateful to be here and are not antagonistic to the state of Israel. And if you go to the Golan Heights, they'll welcome you with open arms. And they really are a wonderful, wonderful group of people. And I have friends up there who are Druze. And that's what I have to say about that.
All right. Someone else asked if you knew why Israel is called a state, not a country. So,
very good question. It's a complicated question. Obviously, we thought about making it a kingdom, right? Israel should be a kingdom. We should have a king. We thought about having a country and a state. And I forgot all the details, to be honest. I used to know that a lot better because that was a question that was common that I would receive when I was guiding in Tel Aviv and the Independence Hall. But I know that it had something to do with the legality and the terms and what a state is versus a country versus a kingdom and international law. But to be totally honest, I forgot the details. But I'll tell you what, when you, whoever asked that question, join us in November this fall on our in-person tour, I'm going to be prepared for that question, I promise.
perfect. Someone wants to know if things on Akko are better than they are last May. I don't know what happened last May. But...
So listen, last May and various times whenever there is a little bit more of a, not a nice background, and a little bit more of a conflict, whether it's in Gaza or any type of conflict between Lebanon, Hezbollah, whatever it is. So obviously there's going to be some incitement within the Arab communities across Israel. Last May was probably some of the most horrific violence that we saw coming out from the Arab community here, Arab Israeli citizens. And it was not pleasant in Akko as well. But for the most part, you know, tensions don't run high usually in Akko. I feel very safe in Akko, walking the streets at night, being there, guiding people. I've never felt threatened before. And very rarely do you really see something on the news of, Arab Jewish conflict taking place there, but it does happen from time to time.
Okay. Another question about China. Is China going to manage one of Israel's ports? If true, is Israel prepared to ensure that China doesn't take it over?
Well, the latter part of the question, I don't even know how to address. But the first part of that, so China does a lot of work around the world. They do a lot of construction, a lot of building. And the new section here in the Haifa port was constructed in part by the Chinese. During the Trump administration, there was a lot of discussion between Israel and America about our relationship with China. And some of those ties that Israel and China had forged, I would say slow down a bit. And certain things that might be considered sensitive and certain things that China might be able to abuse whatever power they would receive from running a port or maybe building the railroad lines and various construction here in Israel. So there's been preventative measures that they wouldn't be able to abuse that power. And also even some of the contracts weren't given to the Chinese because of our sacred ally that we have with America. And that was, like I said, during the Trump administration. I believe it is also continuing now with the Biden administration as well.
Thank you.
I will say this, there's a train that's going by. Can you get a little bit of that train, Phil? You can just see that's a cargo train. It's bringing goods all around Israel to the ports. But I will say is that China has been a huge investor in our high tech, and a lot of Chinese money has helped our high tech here in Israel. In fact, President Xi, I think his name is, in China, he allowed his citizens, which in order to invest anything foreign, has to get special permission from the Chinese government. We know the Chinese government is definitely not American, right? It's not a very free country to say the least. But he allowed Chinese investors to freely invest in Israel. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Okay, thank you. Someone asked about Rosh Hanikra. Are the grottos open?
Yes, they're open. Absolutely. Can't go swimming in them. A little too dangerous, but they're open. You can take the cable car down, and you can visit right now.
Nice. Do you know when the Baha'i Gardens were formed?
So they purchased that land already in the 1950s. You can see some of the older pictures, the original mausoleum. But the Baha'i Gardens that we know them now, I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, the construction began in the 80s and was officially opened up in the 90s.
Seeing Lebanon from Haifa, did Hezbollah send missiles over to the Mediterranean before they could, God forbid, do it now? And could they, God forbid, do it now?
During the Second Lebanon War, missiles did hit the area of Haifa. It is within range of the Katyusha rockets that they have. They could strike Haifa now if they wanted to launch some of their Katyusha rockets that they have. And we know, with the help of Iran, who completely funds Hezbollah, and Hezbollah would not have been able to rearm if it wasn't for, the literally billions of dollars that Iran gives to Hezbollah, that they've been able to rearm, and even with greater weaponry than what they had in 2006. But that being said, that is the arms race of the world, right? They produce better weapons and we produce better defensive weapons. So if I had to put my money on it, I trust in Israel over Hezbollah. But that being said, if some fighting does happen again, Haifa would be within range of Hezbollah armament.
That's a terrifying thought.
Today, a lot of Israel is also within range of rockets that Hamas has. And again, we have to remember that all of these armaments, just like the Houthis in Yemen, but these are armaments that Hezbollah and Hamas are building and acquiring is almost solely coming from Iran. Iran is truly the enemy of Israel and enemy of America and really of the democratic free world. They are a fundamental extremist government that hopefully will be dealt properly.
Hopefully. We have a question back from when you were in the university. Is the boat found in the Kinneret Sea older than the one in the museum?
Yeah, great question. I was wondering if anybody would pose that question. There's a famous boat in Kibbutz Ginosar that is oftentimes referred to as the Jesus boat, because it comes from the end of the Second Temple period. Let's call it within the 1st century CE, the Common Era. So that boat is younger by about 400 years. It's about 2,000 years old. And the boat we saw today is about 2,400 years old. But the boat we saw today is actually preserved even better. And that's because of where it was located here in the shallow waters. It was protected by some basalt stones. And the salt water actually preserved the wood better than the water in the Kinneret. Ooh, the rain's starting to come down here.
Oh, I hate that you're caught in that, David.
Oh, it's okay.
We appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate you all being here. I really, really do. All of you that are still tuning in and you're all here, thank you so much. It means the world to all of us. But I can speak for myself. It really means the world to me. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
Haifa, 30% Muslim or Christian Arab? Somebody asked.
Great question. So I just said it was 30% Arab, which is divided between the Christian community and the Muslim community. I don't have that figure, on my fingertips here, but if I had to take an educated guess, which I'll say is a pretty good one, I would say that it's more Muslim than it is Christian.
Okay.
Even that 30%, which is Arab, I would say it's probably at least 70% of it's Muslim.
Perfect. Somebody wants to know why you went to Israel to begin with.
That's a good question. I came to Israel 20 years ago. I was 24 years old. I was an American hippie believe it or not, living in my VW bus, 1974 bubble top, 1600cc engine, if you're in the know, dual carburetor. And my favorite band, Fish, retired in 2000. And I wasn't too sure what I was going to do with my life because I was one of these carnies selling t-shirts in the parking lot before the concerts and everything else. And I decided I went to the airport. I said, let's go on an adventure. I saw Tel Aviv. I said, you know what? I'm Jewish. Let's make that the first destination. And it was also my last destination. I've been here ever since.
I could definitely understand that. And those who join us on your tour, God willing, in November, they'll understand also. I want you to get warm and get out of the rain. So thank you again for everything that you've done for us, taking us all around Israel live. And thank you, everyone who's tuned in.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Lee. And thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute blessing. Thank you so much. God bless.
Take care, David. Thank you again to our sponsors, the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta, the Atlanta Jews of Color Council, Jewish Community Relations Council, and of course, the Consulate General of Israel to the Southeast. And our promotional partners. Thank you. I know we had quite a few people from Canada, and we appreciate all of you being here. We definitely appreciate our media partners. And David, if you have any questions about, doing some tours with him with your family, please don't hesitate to reach out with him. As he said, he's happy to answer any questions. We will have all of our tours on our YouTube page. Please don't hesitate to check in, watch any of them, ask us any questions you have. Happy to answer them. And to learn more about the Atlanta Israel Coalition, there are plenty of ways. One of the ways is reach out to me. Happy to answer any of your questions, but we have Facebook, Linktree, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the Atlanta Connection. We have a website that we're building right now, and you can email us anytime. And again, anything you can contribute is truly appreciated. Your money does not go to a big building fund. It does not go to many salaries. We are volunteers with a passion, and it's all programming, and you help make it happen. We're truly grateful for each and every one of you. We'll be sending out a survey today. If you could take the survey, it helps us with our programming. We want to make sure that we're providing you the best. So if you could take a few minutes, definitely want to thank you for that. And I hope to see you all again soon. Take care.